Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Rain fell in thin curtains over the sleeping city, reflecting the flickering neon signs and solitary streetlights. Emily Carter walked alone, clutching a damp scarf, her heart heavy with an emptiness nothing could fill. Alexander, her husband, the man with whom she had shared every smile, every dream, had been taken from her 3 weeks ago in a tragic accident. Since that day, the world seemed gray, frozen, as if life itself refused to go on without him. Every night, Emily relived her memories, bursts of happiness that broke her heart. His laughter, his hand in hers, the way he looked at her as if she were the center of the universe, it all haunted her in a whirlwind of pain and longing. But that night, something inside her changed. An invisible, inexplicable force drew her to the park where Alexander had died. The puddles reflected his tired face, and she felt a strange warmth spread through her chest. She knelt beside the body covered with a white sheet, her trembling hands lightly touching his familiar face. Her tears mingled with the rain, and she felt a shiver run down her spine. Then, against all reason, Emily pressed her lips to Alexander's. The world seemed to hold its breath. A soft, golden, vibrant light emanated from her, enveloping her husband's lifeless body. A warm breeze stirred the air, and for the first time in weeks, she saw his eyelids move. Alexander's eyes slowly opened, revealing a mixture of confusion and recognition. Emily felt a wave of emotions wash over her, joy, relief, but also a dull fear. For something had changed. Her husband had returned, but he was no longer quite the same. The wind whispered through the trees, as if to warn Emily that this kiss had opened a door between the world of the living and that of unfathomable mysteries. And as she held Alexander in her arms, she knew that no life, no love, would ever be the same again. Morning dawned over the city, still damp with rain, but Emily noticed neither the sun breaking through the clouds nor the timid birdsong. All that mattered was Alexander. Sitting on the edge of the bed, his clear eyes stared into space as if he could see beyond the walls of their apartment. His hands trembled slightly, and his breath was uneven, as if he had just drifted through a dream too long to be real. Emily approached gently, placing her hand on his. "Alex, it's me, Emily. You're back," her voice trembled, a mixture of joy and fear. Alexander blinked, as if searching his memories for something, then a fragile smile appeared on his lips. The smile she thought she had lost forever. "Emily." Her voice was hoarse, foreign, and yet so familiar. I feel different." Emily felt a shiver run through her body. She knew it wasn't simply the trauma of death or the relief of returning to life. There was something strange about him, an almost luminous aura that seemed to float around his figure. She wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but no words came out. All she could do was hold her husband close and cry tears of joy. The following hours were a mixture of tender reunion and silent fear. Alexander didn't remember his accident, but he seemed to have flashes of visions he couldn't explain, sensations of light, inaudible whispers, and a feeling of being somewhere else, then returning. Emily understood then that this simple kiss had crossed a line that no one should ever cross. The phone rang, breaking the fragile silence. Emily answered and heard her sister Rachel's panicked voice. "Emily. I heard. Alexander's alive? How is that possible?" Emily felt a mixture of pride and fear. The secret of this miracle wasn't just between them. The world would soon be asking questions, and she didn't know if she could protect what they had just experienced. That day, as Alexander adjusted to his new reality, Emily realized that nothing would ever be the same again. Their love had defied death, but at what cost? And above all, what had truly changed in Alexander? The days following Alexander's return were filled with a strange mixture of joy and worry. Every morning, Emily watched her husband with fascination. He seemed both the same and different. His gaze, once warm and reassuring, now held an unfathomable depth, as if he had seen things no one on earth could comprehend. Alexander had resumed his daily routine, but his gestures betrayed a slight strangeness. He seemed to perceive details imperceptible to others, a slight tremor in the air, the scent of a flower at the other end of the street, sounds so subtle that Emily, despite her proximity, couldn't hear them. And then there were those moments when his smile vanished, replaced by an expression of deep concentration, as if he were conversing with someone or something that no one else could see. One night, Emily surprised him in the living room, staring blankly ahead. "Alex, are you still awake?" she asked softly. He turned his head towards her, his eyes reflecting an unusual gleam. "Emily. I sense presences. Things I've never noticed before. As if a veil has been lifted." Emily shivered. She understood then that this return to life was not a simple romantic miracle. Something had changed in him. Something that defied all logic. At the office, Alexander's colleagues also noticed changes. He was more attentive, almost intuitive, and his decisions seemed guided by a wisdom he had never possessed before. Some were impressed, others intrigued, but all sensed that something mysterious hung over him. Emily, for her part, had to face a more pressing question: how long would Alexander remain as he was now? And above all, did this miracle come at a price? Fear crept into her heart, but she pushed it back behind gratitude. She had her husband, alive and present. That evening, as they held hands, a shiver ran through Emily. She knew their story had just entered uncharted territory. The kiss that had defied death had opened a door, and behind that door, even greater mysteries awaited them. Weeks passed, and life seemed to be returning to some semblance of normalcy for Emily and Alexander. Yet, subtle but troubling details began to emerge. Neighbors whispered, noticing unusual behavior in Alexander. He wasn't just attentive to details, he seemed to sense the emotions of those around him, sometimes even before they expressed them. One morning, Emily found Alexander in the garden, his eyes closed, his hands outstretched towards the sky. "Alex, what are you doing?" she asked, worried. I feel something, Emily. As if the world were breathing differently. As if every human being carried a secret that I can perceive." Her voice was soft, but strange, almost distant. Emily felt a mixture of fear and wonder. She understood that the kiss that had brought him back to life had not only defeated death, it had awakened in him abilities that no science could explain. The problem also manifested itself in their social relationships. At work, Alexander seemed to anticipate his colleagues' reactions with disconcerting accuracy. Some were impressed and fascinated, others became nervous and suspicious. Emily observed this growing tension with concern. She knew that too much curiosity could attract the attention of people with less benevolent intentions. Then came the dreams. Alexander shared them with Emily, vivid visions of unfamiliar places, shifting lights, and sometimes future events that unfolded shortly afterward. Emily understood then that Alexander's life had changed irrevocably. He was no longer just her husband, he was a being who seemed connected to something far greater and more mysterious than the world they knew. One evening, while they were having dinner, Alexander placed his hand on Emily's and whispered, "I believe this return to life was not a coincidence. Someone or something sent me back here, and I feel that my mission is not yet complete." Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. She loved this man, but she understood there was an invisible danger. The line between the ordinary and the extraordinary had just been crossed, and she wondered if their love could survive what lay ahead. Days passed, and what had begun as a private wonder between Emily and Alexander began to spiral out of control. Rumors circulated among their friends and family: Alexander had returned from the dead. At first, Emily ignored the whispers, thinking they were only affected by the fear and disbelief of others. But soon, these rumors began to spread further, even reaching social media. One morning, while Emily was preparing breakfast, Alexander received a strange call. The voice on the other end was calm and composed, but carried a disturbing undertone. "Mr. Carter, we know what happened. We need to talk." Emily felt her heart clench. Who is it?" she asked. Alexander hung up without answering. His eyes, usually so full of life, were now clouded with worry. "Emily, they know. And I don't know yet if it's to help us or to harm us." Soon after, strange events began to occur around them. Fleeting lights appeared in the house, imperceptible noises echoed through the hallways, and Alexander seemed to understand things no one else could. He would sometimes leave Emily for hours, disappearing into the city without explanation, only to return with information he couldn't explain. Emily felt a mixture of admiration and fear. Her husband was alive, yes, but he was no longer just the man she knew. Something larger, almost supernatural, had awakened within him. And Emily understood that the kiss that had brought him back to life might have opened a door that no one could close. That night, as they stood in the silent room, Alexander whispered, "Emily, I feel that someone or something is watching us. And if we don't find out who, it could be dangerous for both of us." Emily squeezed his hand, determined despite the fear rising within her. Their love had defied death, but now it also had to face the unknown. And the question burned in her mind, would the miracle that had brought Alexander back to life protect them, or plunge them into a danger they couldn't even imagine? The following days were marked by a strange intensity. Alexander hardly slept, spending his nights studying old books, poring over forgotten documents, and analyzing phenomena that no one else understood. Emily watched him with concern. Her husband was alive, yes, but each discovery seemed to bring him closer to a world she didn't know. One evening, Alexander entered the living room, his face illuminated by a glow that was both wonder and confusion. "Emily, I think I understand something." She sat down next to him, taking his hand. "Understand what?" "The kiss, it wasn't just a miracle. Someone, or something, sent me back here for a reason. I feel a presence, an energy, a mission I must fulfill." Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. "A mission? Alexander, you're alive, but what do you mean by mission?" Alexander shook his head. "I don't know everything yet. But there are signs, visions, flashes, sensations. Places I've never seen, people I'm destined to meet. And if I don't understand soon, I fear there will be serious consequences." The next day, strange events confirmed his suspicions. A stranger left a message at their door, a simple word written on a piece of paper: "Time is running out." Alexander felt a peculiar vibration when he touched the word, as if the writing itself carried an invisible warning. Emily began to realize that this return to life, which she had initially welcomed with pure joy, concealed responsibilities and dangers she had never imagined. Their intimate world was shifting towards something bigger, more mysterious, and perhaps more dangerous. That night, as Alexander gazed at the sky through the window, Emily approached and whispered, "Alex, I don't know what awaits us, but I will be by your side." He turned his gaze towards her, a mixture of gratitude and determination in his eyes. "Emily, if I have to face what's in store for me, I don't want to do it alone." And as the moon illuminated their silent apartment, Emily finally understood, the miracle that had brought Alexander back to life wasn't just a return to normalcy. It was the beginning of an adventure that would defy all the laws of reality, and their love would be tested more than ever. In the days that followed, Alexander increasingly felt the presence of invisible forces around him. He didn't know if they were friendly or hostile, but he understood that his return to life would not go unnoticed. Every movement, every interaction with the outside world seemed to resonate with a strange energy that only Emily could barely perceive. One afternoon, while Alexander was walking in the park to clear his mind, he noticed a dark figure following him at a distance. He tried to speed up, but the figure did the same. When he turned sharply, it vanished like a shadow in the sunlight. His heart pounding, he knew someone or something was watching him. Back home, Emily looked at him with concern. "Alex, you seem more alert than ever. What happened?" Alexander sat down heavily, his jaw clenched. "Emily, I think my return has attracted attention. Forces, beings I can't explain. I feel they're watching us, waiting for the right moment to act." That night, a cold wind swept through their apartment, seemingly coming from no open window. The lights flickered, and an incomprehensible murmur echoed through the walls. Emily clung to Alexander, terrified. "Alex, what are we doing?" He held her close. We have to be careful. I need to understand what brought me back to life, and why. Otherwise, we won't be ready for what's coming. The next day, Alexander began searching for clues in ancient books and forgotten city archives. He discovered strange tales of people who had returned from the dead, and the responsibilities that fell to them upon their return. Each story seemed different, but all shared a common thread, an unbreakable bond with a mysterious force, a mission that transcended ordinary life. Emily watched her husband, torn between admiration and concern. She sensed that something greater than their love was at stake. And she knew that their quiet life had just vanished forever. That night, as they were going to bed, Alexander whispered, "Emily, we can't back down now. Everything we do now matters. And I feel the real test is about to begin." Emily closed her eyes, feeling a dull fear mixed with unwavering love. The miracle of her kiss had brought Alexander back to life, but it had also opened a door to a world of which they only knew a tiny part. The weeks that followed were filled with palpable tension. Alexander felt increasingly clearly that unknown forces were trying to make contact with him. One afternoon, while he was working in his office, a faint creaking sound echoed behind him. Before he could turn around, a figure appeared, seemingly from nowhere, a man dressed in black, his face hidden beneath a hood. Alexander Carter. The voice was low, but sharp. "You shouldn't have come back." Emily's heart was pounding as she crept quietly into the room. Her eyes met the intruder's, cold and impenetrable. "Who are you?" she asked, trying to hide her fear. The man didn't answer immediately. His eyes fixed on Alexander with an intensity that sent a shiver down Emily's spine. "I'm here to warn you. What you've done, what you've defied, will not be without consequences." Alexander straightened up, his voice firm but calm. "I'm not looking for conflict. I just want to understand why I came back." The stranger took a step forward, and Emily felt the air around them vibrate with a strange energy. "There are rules you don't know, Alexander. Forces you've awakened, that never sleep." Before they could reply, the man vanished as suddenly as he had appeared, leaving behind only a faint smell of burning and a chilling chill. Emily and Alexander remained frozen, silence falling heavily around them. This encounter changed everything. They understood that Alexander's return was not just a personal miracle, but an event that attracted the attention of unseen powers, determined to monitor and test those who had defied the natural course of life and death. That night, Emily snuggled up to Alexander, her fear mixed with a newfound determination. "Alex, we have to prepare. I don't want to lose you, not a second time." Alexander held her close, a mixture of certainty and worry in his eyes. "I know, Emily, and this time, we'll face what's coming together. But I feel like this is only the beginning." And as they watched the dancing shadows on the walls, they understood that their love, however powerful, would soon be tested by forces far greater than themselves. The following days were marked by a growing tension. Alexander sensed something approaching, an invisible but oppressive force, ready to test his will and resilience. Every noise, every movement in their apartment put him on high alert. Emily, despite her fear, never left his side, understanding that their survival depended on their unity. One morning, while Alexander was exploring the ancient documents he had collected, he came across a passage that made his heart race. An ancient text spoke of beings who had returned from the dead to accomplish a specific mission, to protect a fragile balance between the visible and invisible worlds. Those who failed disappeared forever, and their return became a warning to the living. Emily, reading over her shoulder, felt an icy chill run through her body. "Alex, you really came back for something bigger than us?" Alexander nodded, his face grave. "I believe so. My return wasn't a simple miracle. And if I want to protect you, if I want to protect those I love, I must understand and accept this mission." That same night, the presence he had sensed for weeks manifested itself fully. A golden light, floating like mist, appeared in the living room. A voice resonated in the air, gentle yet authoritative. "Alexander Carter, you have been chosen. You must awaken what lies dormant within you and fulfill the purpose for which you were brought back. But know that the path will be fraught with trials. Emily huddled against him, trembling, while Alexander reached his hand towards the light. He felt an energy coursing through his body, awakening abilities he had never imagined, heightened perception, extraordinary intuition, and a sensitivity to forces that the human eye cannot see. Emily. I can't predict everything that's going to happen. But I know one thing, we have to face this together. As the light faded, leaving an almost sacred silence in the apartment, Emily realized that their lives had shifted into a universe where love and courage would be the only weapons against an unknown destiny. That night, as they finally fell asleep, Emily promised herself that she would never let Alexander face that mysterious force alone. And Alexander, feeling her hand tighten in his, knew that together they could face even what death itself had not been able to hold back. The following weeks were marked by almost unbearable tension. Alexander sensed that the moment of his first real test was approaching. The unseen presences became more insistent, as if they could sense his hesitations and scrutinized his every move. Emily, though frightened, remained by his side, ready to face the unknown with him. One night, as they were returning from an errand, a strange accident occurred. A car appeared out of nowhere, as if guided by an invisible force, and headed straight for them. Alexander reacted instinctively. He pushed Emily aside and, with a gesture he didn't fully control, he caused the car to move as if obeying an invisible force field. They narrowly avoided a collision, the car crashing into a tree. Emily, her hands trembling, looked at Alexander in astonishment. Alex, how did you do that? Alexander stood there, panting, his eyes shining with an inner light. I believe that this energy, this power I've felt since my return, is beginning to manifest. But I don't yet have complete control over it. The next day, an anonymous message was slipped under their door. The real test is just beginning. Prepare yourselves. Emily felt an icy chill run down her spine. Their return to life was not just a romantic miracle, it had become the starting point of a perilous adventure, where every choice would have life-threatening consequences. Alexander knew he had to learn to control his newfound abilities before the danger worsened. He began intensive mental and physical training, while Emily sought to decipher the clues left by the mysterious forces. Together, they discovered that certain people in their city seemed connected to these forces, their actions often guided by influences they couldn't yet explain. That night, as they sat in the living room, Emily placed her hand on Alexander's. We'll get through this, Alex. No matter what happens, we'll stay together. Alexander smiled faintly, his gaze determined. Yes, Emily, and when the real test comes, we'll be ready. But I feel that what's happening is much bigger than we imagined. Outside, the city seemed calm, but Alexander knew the storm was approaching. The miracle of his return had awakened something, and the mission he had to accomplish had only just begun. Night had fallen on the city, but the apparent calm fooled no one. Emily and Alexander knew the dreaded moment had arrived. Since his return, every sign, every warning, every vision had prepared them for what was to come. But nothing could truly prepare the heart for the intensity of the present moment. A strange light flooded their apartment, illuminating every corner with a golden and bluish glow. A voice resonated, clear and authoritative. Alexander Carter, the time has come. Accomplish what you were brought back to life to do, or all will be lost. Emily snuggled against him, feeling fear mixed with an invisible force that enveloped them. Alex, we're ready, together. Alexander nodded, closing his eyes. He felt within him the energy that had awakened him, a force he had learned to channel but had never fully mastered. The walls of the apartment seemed to open onto another world, an ethereal space where reality and the supernatural intertwined. Indistinct shapes drew closer, testing his will and his self-control. He raised his hands, and the energy surrounding him began to focus, responding to his intentions. Every breath, every thought guided the luminous flow around him, pushing back the threatening shadows. Emily, at the center of his universe, was his strength, his reason to continue. Emily. I brought you back here, or rather. I came back to protect us both. His words were a promise and a challenge. The shapes surrounding them drew closer, but Alexander, focused, used his newfound power to create a protective field, repelling the hostile forces while maintaining control of the energy. The voice resonated again, you understood the true nature of your return. You chose love and courage, you succeeded. Then, as if a veil were lifted, the shadows vanished, leaving the couple alone in their apartment, silence once more absolute. Alexander felt the fatigue and adrenaline drain from his body, but also a profound sense of peace. Emily, her eyes shining with tears, placed her hand on his face. You're back, and you're even more incredible than I could have imagined. Alexander smiled, holding Emily close. I didn't just come back for myself. I came back for us, for the love that binds us. And as long as we stay together, no obstacle, no force, can separate us. That night, Emily and Alexander understood that their love had defied death, confronted mysterious forces, and triumphed over the most impossible trials. The miracle that had brought Alexander back to life was not merely a return to normalcy, it was a rebirth, proof that true love could transcend all limits, even those of life and death. And as they kissed, under the soft moonlight, they knew that their story had only just begun.